What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday, happy holiday season, happy year end 2024, welcoming 2025. Welcome to the Catalyst for the Trades podcast. I'm Chuck Staszkiewicz, aka the original Chuck in the Truck. My co-hosts are not here today. They are off doing big things. Crystal and Jen can't join us today, so we're gonna keep the consistency and bring in a special guest for today and talk about some year-end stuff. I'm really excited. Episode number 2. We're still working out some kinks. I know we're live some areas. We're working on getting live in other areas. But feel free to share, like the podcast. You should be able to find us on Spotify and all the major platforms. But anyways, so let's get right into it. Today, again, like I said, I wanted to talk a lot about year-end stuff, and I'm always looking for something. The last year I sold my company August of 2023, and I've looked back and I've done a ton of reflecting, and people always ask me that if there's one question that I get asked the most, it's really, what would you have done different? Okay, and there's lots of things that I would have done different. I'm grateful for everything that happened, but one of the biggest things that I would have done different is I would have hired a mentor from day one. I waited, in my opinion, I waited too long for that. One of the second things that I would have done is tax planning. And that is, I didn't know everything I know now. Even in a year's time, or a little over a year's time of exiting the business, I've learned so much about things that I could have done in my business that, I was doing $20 million in sales. That's a great business. But if I would have implemented a fraction of the things that I know now, I could have been 40, 50, 60 million easy, like really with not a lot of effort, pretty much doing the same things that I was doing, but better and a little different. So with that being said, I brought a good friend of mine, Erik. He's my wealth advisor. He helps me with tax planning. He helped me on tax planning on my exit. He's really become a great friend over the last year, and we do a lot of work together. I've watched what he does not only for myself, but for other businesses as well. And, I don't want to tell everything about him, so I'd like to introduce Erik. And Erik, let our listeners know a little bit more about you and who you are and what you do.
Sure. Appreciate it. And I'm glad to get 100% of Chuck, even though I don't know your co-hosts. I'll take 100% Chuck anytime. So I'm glad to spend the next 40 minutes with you. And really sweet opener too. I had my own podcast for a while, and if I ever start doing it again, I'm going to have to up my game because I was 1,000 times better than mine. But no, so my name's Erik Flegal. I actually run 3 companies, Fortune Tax Alliance, which is really focused on, tax mitigation, Family Fortune Financial, which is all things kind of wealth management. So anything that touches a dollar, insurance, investments, all of that. It's kind of your traditional wealth management, if you will, but I like to think we're better. Well, I know we're better. And then we have our insurance, this Fortune Insurance Alliance, and it's a separate podcast, but we can do insurance that on that chassis. Really, I think the main thing is I've been doing this for 22 years. I started as an intern, and I felt like wealth management wise, the business is broken from my vantage point because we're really out there trying to gather assets to say, let me charge you a fee. That's it. And the question as I got more and more wealthy clients that always came up is, or I should say the rub was, what are you going to do about tax? Like, I hate paying tax. And literally, if you have an account at, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, wherever, on the bottom of their statements, it says, we do not give tax advice. So I'm like, so the one thing that all these people complain about, anybody that makes over $500,000 or has over $1 million in the bank complains about is tax. The one thing that they all complain about, we do not advise on. That just doesn't make sense. So I went down this rabbit hole, and eventually, I started at Smith Barney, which became Morgan Stanley. I went to a private bank, thinking surely, private bank, they're going to integrate everything. It was actually worse. So I went completely independent, and it takes a team. So the first thing that Chuck said, you need a coach, 100%. the ability to plug into the knowledge of people that are better. And I say they're better. I mean, I think that takes a little bit of humility to say like, I could get better, and all of us, we're trying to get better. No matter how good we are, we're always trying to get better. And having a coach or a mentor help us get to that next level is crucial. And then as a business owner, or really anybody that's on, there's just areas that we don't know anything about. And I think you could just say like, why do you go to the doctor? Because they went to school to learn about something that like, I'm not going to spend that much time doing. Right. So there's going to be areas that we have blind spots in. I run these companies, but inside of these companies, we have partners, and I was taught very early in my career, the biggest Rolodex wins. So I've spent 22 years building out a giant Rolodex so we can help people kind of matriculate up and build the proper team that can help them maximize the value of their business and exit well. I'll stop with that, and then we can kind of go through a little bit more, but that's a little bit about us and what we do.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Erik. And look, I say it over and over. I mean, I ran the business for 12 years, and it was gather all my stuff, hand it over to the CPA. They got it into the IRS. I usually owed, all that stuff, right? But in my experience over the last year and a half, I've really found there's a lot more to just that, not doing just that, right? Like there's so many other things that small businesses can be doing to prepare for taxes, and not just the write-offs that you think about or that are like, work related, but there's many, many, many other things. Like one, the Augusta law, right? Like I never knew about that. Like you can throw an event at your house, pay for the landscaping, pay for the catering, but a month before and a month after. And it's completely legal to do. And there's many, many more. That's just one example of something I did not know about, and I didn't use and plan and strategize for taxes, right? Like, look, what I've learned is you want to start strategizing and planning with taxes around October. But we're just in the beginning of December. It's not too late, right? You still have time to put some of these things in place. So, Erik, if you had to tell small businesses owners from 1 to 3 million, 3 to 5 million, 5 to 10 million, what are some strategies they should be thinking about in December? Not just holiday parties, not just the norm, but some bigger things that they could be considering.
Sure. So I'm going to give you like a high level, and I'll work my way down. So sure. Most people just I don't want to knock on CPAs. CPAs are going to save you 10 to 15%, and they're a part of our team.
Two different people.
So yeah, I call it tax compliance. So they're going to tell you what you owe. They're going to take the things like your Augusta law and some basic deductions, accelerated deductions for the vehicles that you're buying. And I say that I put a pin in it because most people will tell you to like spend out of paying tax, right? Like, so I'm not saying to do that, but they'll have these things that you can do, and they'll take those deductions, and you need them to do that. I call that like the first gate. So what'll happen is you get a CPA that's really good, and they are going to take all of those deductions and reduce your taxes 10 to 15%. Because there's a lot of laws that they have to kind of figure out and work through. But that is what I call rear view mirror tax planning. So you're driving forward, you get to the end of the year, right? And then they look in the rear view mirror and they're like, in 2024, you did $1 million, you owe $400,000 in tax, right? That's it. So they're compliantly telling you what happened and what you owe. What we try to do is we try to drive looking through the front windshield, and we say like, hey, there is a pothole and you're driving 60. We can go around it, right? But if you drive looking forward, and that's where Chuck is talking about the tax planning, you're navigating. And I think that, I want to do two things. I want to normalize everyone's experience, which is if this is the first time you're ever thought about tax planning, it's going to sound like, you're going to have one of two emotions. You're going to be like, I want to know more about this, and this is awesome. Or you're going to be like, I don't understand this. This is, why have I not heard about it before? So I think to just normalize it. If you think about tax only in April when you have to pay something, there is going to come a point in time where your business will mature and you will be thinking about tax all year long. There's a shift that happens, right? You'll go from like, I'm paying $15,000 or $20,000 to, You get to the end of your estimates become 15 to 20,000. You're like, how the heck did that happen? So and when that happens, that is like, you're like, when should I think about tax planning? I mean, you should always think about it, but that's really kind of like, all right, I need to start thinking about this because you've reached that level where tax becomes a year-long conversation.
Yeah.
Secondarily, there are really two levels of tax planning. You can do things that are just, I just want to do once, like your Augusta, right? You do that this year. That doesn't mean you have to do it next year, but there's little knickknack things you can learn. And then you have things that you can set in place. It's like a bucket that you can fill every year. So I think of when you think of small business owners, setting up a retirement plan for your employees. Very simple, right? Most payroll companies, now look, I'm not an ADP fan or any of these people, but most payroll companies will set it up for you for free. And you then just have a bucket that you can put money into.
Yep. And
candidly, if you have a profit share, you can even, put money in, get credit for this year, but pay next year, which is something else. But in any case, like I call it a structural thing. So you have like one-time things that you can do, and then you have structural things that you can do. But when I'm trying to just kind of give you a context for how to think about it, because this is a very normal part of wealthy people's lives, tax planning.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop for a minute. I have more thoughts on it, but just to kind of normalize where we're starting from, so people don't think like, I don't get it. How should I think about it? Like, that's how you should
and that's great, right? Because like you said, there are so many business owners out there that aren't thinking of this way, that they're just handing it over to the CPA, and this is what here's a little bit of write-offs and deductions. Mm-hmm. If you start to really dive into the rabbit hole, there are a lot more things that out there, and I don't know the ins and outs of them. That's why I hire the professionals, right? Mm-hmm. But guys, it's not a little bit, it's a lot of savings. And I love the fact that you don't have to spend your way out of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like everybody scrambles at the end of the year. I mean, there's companies out there promoting it right now. Need tax deductions, buy more equipment. That's great, right? But what does that do for your cash flow? Mm-hmm. A lot of these strategies help protect your cash flow as well. You're still showing the profits, so therefore you can borrow, do SBA, other bankable stuff. It looks better. And let's face it, if you're going for an exit, right, you want to show profits 2 to 3 years before you exit. You want to show a good trail. So these strategies keep the profits in there, but also keep your cash flow where you need it to be. And you keep the money in the business versus, sending it to Uncle Sam, and all legal, right? Like, you mentioned retirement funds. It's simple HSA, right? Mm-hmm. You can have self-funded HSA. You're talking about insurance, right? But there's policies that you can do in insurance where it's a company-funded insurance fund that will save money on taxes as well. And when you're talking 130 employees plus their family or more, even 50 employees, 75 employees and their family, that insurance fund can be a huge deduction. So I think it's really important that if you get anything from this episode, you should be getting that I need to ask better questions and do more research. Right? That's really where it's at. So if you don't know or don't understand it, ask better questions and do more research and find out these things that are out there.
I'm not an advocate for the alphabet soup that comes after a lot of advisors' names. They've got a bunch of letters, but there is one group that I think does a very good job of aligning resources and getting these questions in front of people. Because to Chuck's point, you do want to ask questions. The hard part is, who do you ask? And there's not a lot of people that really do this. Most CPAs, I mean, we're having a little bit of a battle now. Like there's tiers of professionals, right? And some of these people cost a lot of money, but you go to them when you have a lot of money and you have a big problem. So how do you know when to matriculate up? Like you can hit a ceiling with your CPA, you ask and they don't have the answer. So I'm a big advocate of a group called, it's their CEPA, it's a Certified Exit Planning Advisor. I'm a member of this organization specifically because they are huge in terms of like, let's get a team around you as a business owner and grow the value of your business. I bring this up because most advisors, I will ask this question and people will answer it, and then I'll tell you what I think. Say, like, what's the best way to grow the value of your business? Most people are going to say, more income. I need more sales. I need to drive more revenue, right? I would say that's not the best way to grow the value of your business. The best way to grow the value of your business is to de-risk. So a lot of people, they're going to come in and they're going to say, okay, how ready are you to sell? How buttoned up are your contracts? How buttoned up are your employees? How buttoned up, how big is your biggest contract? Like, all of these things are de-risking. And I think tax planning is a huge de-risker for your business. If you make $1 million and you have a profit margin of 20%, you're coming home with $200,000. That's great. If you have, let's just say you have like $1 million of taxable income and your tax rate's 40%. So you're giving $400,000 to the government and you're like, I just need more income. So you double and go to $2 million. You've just handed over $800,000. What if we could take that 40% and squeeze it and get it to 20 or 15 by giving some, benefits to your employees or tax strategizing for you? You have now pricing power to drive product down, hire employees, all those things. That's de-risking. So that when you grow and you get to $2 million, let's say we take your effective rate for all that you're giving out from 40 to 20. Now you got $2 million, you got an extra $400,000 to do things with. That's real power to multiply the value of your business. I think that's the best way to grow your business. And I have 25 to 30 strategies, and I'm not going to label them all, or because it would just bore everyone to death. But I will tell you, these strategies are just for that. It's to increase your margins and keep your employees. That, from Chuck's standpoint, what he just brought up, a basic retirement plan, 401ks can be supercharged to profit sharing, can be supercharged to cash balance, defined benefit plans. These are all great ways to put money into. You as an owner can get anywhere from 60 to 90% of the total benefit of what you put in. But the money that you're not getting is going to your employees for employee retention. Yep. So we've had plenty of employers are like, oh, our clients want a raise. It's like, if you give them a raise in this format, you're able to vest it or put it on a vesting schedule, which means they don't get it all day one. You might give them $10,000 and it might take them 5 years to get it. Oh, but they're going to leave. No, they won't. This is where the whole golden handcuffs concept comes from. Because if you give them 10,000, and I'm using this because just think of a rank and file employee, they get 10,000, but they only get 2,000 if they wait till next year. Well, when you give them another 10,000 next year, now they've got 18,000. And then in 3 years, they got 26,000 because a little bit is vesting every year. They're going to be thinking to themselves I can't leave. I've got 20, 25, 30% of my comp tied up in this vesting program. They're getting a raise, but you're also helping with employee retention, and it's tax advantaged. Yeah. All the while, you could be giving yourself a outsized bonus, growing your personal wealth. Yeah. And then there's strategies to even, get that out of the way for you as well. But these are huge, huge strategies that can, do it for 3 to 5 years. You sock away $1 million. And when you look at the tax savings, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Absurd.
And I love that, Eric. And look, as you grow, you're going to need more of these things. But don't just think, oh, I'm only doing 600,000 and I'm only doing $1 million, that there's not things available for you to do. Because there is. There's smaller stuff that you guys can do too that will make a huge impact. And if you're in that phase or in that journey, part of your journey, you're at $1 million, 2 million, 3 million in sales. Now's the time to start asking the questions and doing the research. So when you get to $10, $20 million in sales, you're not missing out on the things that I missed out on for so many years and wish I would have done. Eric, I don't want to go too far down tax because, literally, I'm sure you could talk about it for days and days and days, and it probably will just confuse people.
Your viewership will plummet.
Yeah.
Until they get cash in their pocket, then they'll get excited. But
that's exactly it. You don't have to understand it. All you just got to know is you're not writing a bigger check to the Uncle Sam, or you're getting a check back. That's all you need to really know. Just do the research and ask the questions. If you don't know, the questions. Erik's information will be available. You can reach out to him. Great resource. Some of the other things that I just wanted to get into real quick, though, is we're talking year end, right? Taxes are very important. You're an expert at it. That's why I wanted to start with that. But we also got to consider, holiday parties, what you're doing for your culture. We talked about retention. Like doing these things can help build your retention and your culture. But getting your team back aligned after the holidays, during the holidays, so on and so forth. It was a huge thing for me, Erik. A huge thing for me every year, right? And at the end, we had 130 employees. Every year in October, I started saying, hey guys, Christmas is 60 days away. Are you ready? Right? We even held budgeting classes for our employees so they could have everything that they needed. Because what we realized was that cash advances or payroll advances were heightening at that year. So, and that was huge. We still have people reach out to us and say, hey, look, your budgeting classes that you did for me changed my perspective on a lot of things. So the other part that I want to talk about too is, getting your team back aligned, like support them. I never did my holiday party at Christmas, right? Reason why is because a lot of emergencies come around the holidays, and we were handling home service stuff. So I said to my employees, I said, look, go enjoy your significant others or your family's party, right? We're going to do ours in February. And we did a little something. We celebrated. We did a potluck, but it was business as usual. And I did a really good job every week and every company meeting from October through January of saying, look, we want you to have the time with your family. Schedule it now. If you're on call, make sure you schedule the time when you're not on call so you have the time and you get the celebration in. We want to support you. The family and your home life is very important. But remember, there's a job to do. Okay? When we hit the ground, we're hitting the ground running. We're not going to slow step into it. We're going to hit the ground and we're going to run. And guess what? Next year is right there too. So when we step into January, we're not going to be slow. We're going to go in. This is our goal for next year. This is what we've got going on. This is what we budgeted. This is what we're doing first quarter. Let's go. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of small businesses don't do that. Right. They just kind of let the employees do what they want to do. Right. And it's not about not allowing employees or not encouraging that. Absolutely support the family, all that stuff, but also reminding them, hey, we got a job to do. If you wait or you don't have these conversations, you're going to find yourself, it's going to be the end of January, middle of February, and you're going to be like, whoa, I am way behind for my target this year. And you got a lot of ground to make up. So if you start, right before Christmas, guys, I want you to have a great time, enjoy, safe, healthy. Every holiday that came around, I said, if you need an Uber, you had a few too many drinks, make sure you call me. I don't care what time it is. I'll either come get you or I'll send an Uber, right? But that led into, hey, we're going to hit the ground running. So I feel that that's important to go along with these year-end episodes that we're in right now. And yeah, I'm sure you experience it with your team too, right? Like you're not doing home services, but you've got a lot of planning to do for year-end, a lot of clients to answer to right now. And you got to make sure you bring your team back aligned saying, hey guys, have fun. But remember, this is the job we're doing.
Yeah. It goes to like the 5 steps that we kind of go through with de-risk, then strategy for then what you're going to do with it. Then you build efficiency on the strategy, then you grow, and that builds that culture. And this is, there's tons of, workflows that you can do, but everybody kind of knows kind of that EOS, traction, entrepreneur operating system, that monthly or quarterly kind of gate module. And it just keeps everybody kind of growth oriented. You throw it in however you want. We kind of hit the end of the year, but we bonus quarterly.
Yeah.
We have we have quarterly goals so people can get them a little sooner. And then it just kind of like, it just keeps everybody focused, eyes on the prize. I talked to you about this before, Chuck, and I've talked to other people too. A year-end bonus doesn't have the excitement that I think people think it does. You were talking about how like parties are better than these bonuses to a degree.
Yeah, great point, Eric. And I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't going to, I didn't have it in my notes to bring it up. I did cash bonuses for 9 years. The last 3 years as we grew, it wasn't feasible. I couldn't do it. And I remember the year that I had to stop doing it. Right. And it did something for me because I'm like, everybody's going to leave. Everybody's going to be mad. No, it really wasn't that way. We did snowmobiling events. We had a fun day, team building activities. We did a casino night where we had a lot of prizes. We did a raffle style. A lot of our vendors donated prizes. Some of our clients even donated things. So we went out into the community and asked for things for our raffles. We gave away airline tickets. I mean, grills and TVs and fireplaces and HVAC systems. Like I had one employee who needed a new AC and furnace. She won it in the raffle. That's great, right? And cash is great, but I hate to say it, it's never enough. And then one person is upset because someone else got something else that they were expecting and this and that. So we just changed it all. Number one, to do a cash bonus for 130 employees, that's tough, right? That you talk about cash flow, that's huge, right? So we did move to a profit share and quarterly, like you're stating, right? But that was just for going above and beyond in their job. The Christmas stuff was more about a celebration, coming together, team building. We had some fun things to do. You got to win some fun things. Everybody got a chance. Everybody won something, so that was really where I felt that the culture was the strongest, is when we went away from the cash bonuses. So, some things to consider, right? They say that the time to hire, the best time of the year to hire is between December and February because people are upset they feel that they should have gotten more or this and that. So I think you rule some of that stuff out. If you set the expectation differently, like, hey, you're going to be bonused throughout the year for a job going above and beyond your job performance. This is what it's going to be. We have a profit share. We have, benefits, explain it, set the expectations differently. And then Christmas is all just about fun, getting together, team building, and your culture will just be unbelievable at that point.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Eric, we got 10 minutes left. I like to ask all my guests. Yeah, we blew through it, man. We blew through it fast. I like to ask all my guests, certain questions. And,
sure.
I've come up with a list, and I feel these are good ones. What do you feel is the best podcast about business? Excuse me. What is the best podcast episode about business you've ever heard?
Best podcast about business. Gosh, so I'm a nerd and I read. I'm the guy that goes to Barnes and Noble and still buys books. And they always laugh at me when I go in there. They're like, you're really going to you're back to buy more books. I'm like, yeah. And I buy them for my kids too.
I love it.
It's weird. So I will tell you the best book. And
that's one of the
know
questions
it's
too. So
yeah, it's silly. The EOS book Traction changed my whole business. It changed the model. I like that book alongside 10X is easier than 2X. 10X is easier than 2X. It was a paradigm shift for my brain because it was if you knew that if you had to, go 10X as opposed to 2, and then all of a sudden you start thinking I got to get this done. You're like, oh my God. And you end up in a blue ocean is what ends up happening. That's kind of where we're at with the tax planning. No one really does this. Everyone's fighting over smaller stuff, but when you go bigger and you're I really want to grow, it just seems harder. So most people, I guess, don't try. But it was a really, really cool kind of paradigm shift reading that book. EOS helped us operationally. 10x is better than 2x helped me better as a boss, kind of as a visionary, cast the vision better.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think EOS and traction is great, if you're at that part in your journey. But I think a lot of business owners in like the $1 to $3 million range, they almost need to come out with an EOS for dummies. And I'm not calling you guys dummies, but a dumbed down version of EOS. I think that is, there's a lot of things in there that you may not be ready for or understand. I think they need to, in my opinion, they need to come with a 1 to 3 million version of that. But definitely.
So I will tell you, like, we have implementers. They have implementers, but they're expensive. They're anywhere from like $2,000 to $10,000 per session. But we started it when we had 4 employees.
Yeah.
So you can be effective with it. It's really just an accountability process. I mean, candidly, like, Chuck, you and I are very similar. I mean, I don't have, I don't want to use like, technical like ADD or ADHD, but like, it's really hard for me to like focus like, for a long period. Like I was telling somebody yesterday, it took me 2 years to sign up for Hertz Gold because it took like 2 minutes to do it. I just didn't have the patience. But the thing at EOS I like is like, you literally write it on a chart, like a sheet. Like, this is my 10 things. Is they'll tell you how to distill down your rocks. And at the end of the quarter, you're like, you have meetings like on or off, and then you just like, you either did it or you didn't.
Yep.
Yeah. So I like it. For me, it's been really helpful.
Awesome. What is your favorite business quote of all time?
I mean, I like the one that someone told me when we started doing tax planning. It's your legal obligation to pay tax. Is your personal decision to overpay. And ultimately, it's born by not having knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. That's literally it. To me, it's like it got my brain thinking like that's true. We all have to pay. You don't have to overpay. And Judge Learned Hand, who was like, they called him like the 13th justice of the Supreme Court because he never made it to the Supreme Court, but he was very influential. He said it's not even patriotic to overpay.
That's great. That's a good one. I'm writing that down now for sure. What is your favorite business influencer right now?
Influencer. I mean, I don't know what side of I don't want your people like shut me off, but like, I do enjoy looking at how Elon Musk thinks.
Yeah.
I love reading how his quotes come out. This is not a political conversation. I've honestly found it fascinating to see how he's worked really well with Democrats and worked really well with Republicans. Because if you go back in time, like 8-12 years, I'm originally from Southern California where SpaceX was at. Sure. I had a lot of friends that worked at SpaceX. I was blown away how much he got government funding for, green energy stuff like Tesla. And, it's just like his companies are government funded. Like, how does he do that? And so I would always watch how he would think and talk. He has found a way to reach across. Now, obviously he seems very Republican friendly, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this guy in 5 years be stumping or walking around with whoever the Democratic nominee ends up being. He's very savvy. So I like to watch. He's smart, and he's not even from this country.
Look, success leaves clues, and he's leaving a lot of clues right now. Yes. Right. And that, I mean, love him, hate him, whatever. That's the thing that I find I try to do better every single day is I try to shut off the emotion about the person and figure out what I can learn from the person, no matter what the emotion is about the person. So again, whether you love him or hate him, the guy's doing phenomenal stuff in business. So I agree with you. I like that one. Last one. What do you feel is the biggest problem small business owners are facing right now and how to solve it?
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story and I'll answer your question. My dad in 2000, you've heard this story.
Yep.
My dad in 2008, my dad ran a small business. He manufactured gas detectors for recreational vehicles. And he started as the janitor. He literally ended up as the CEO president, bought the company from the previous owner. He'd run it for 3.5 years. And in 2008, I was doing my MBA at USC in Southern California. He's like, something's wrong. And people are if you got young people watching, they won't remember, but 2008 was awful. Like, gas prices soared, the economy tanked. So you think about it, for a company that's selling gas detectors to RVs, like, no one is buying an RV. So his customers were seriously like going out of business, or shutting the doors or whatever. So he's like, what's going on? So I'm going in expecting to see, bad books. And it's true. It took me about 30 minutes to realize he was running in the red. It took me another 30 minutes to realize he was running in the red and had been for 2.5 years. How does that happen? So he had a 30 plus year CPA. He had a longtime financial advisor, a personal banker, 2 attorneys on staff. Everybody was doing their job. But this is, this is the part that I struggle with the most in my job. At some point, small business owners need to level up. Like, right. Like we're kind of at first, I'm guilty of it too. Like we're like, I need the best deal possible. I just need to get the LLC docs done. Do it on LegalZoom. I need you just get somebody to do my taxes. Just like do whatever you need to do to get it done. Right. And so you have this kind of hodgepodge team. I call it a Frankenstein team. And if your Frankenstein team wakes up and starts doing whatever it wants to do, you can't control it. And that's what happened to my dad. They were all doing their job. They had no they had no legal issues. They had 2 attorneys looking over the contracts. They had no tax issues because they were writing everything off in inventory. They were asset allocated right, which did, the stock still went down, so he still lost money in 2008. And and this was the kind of the crux of it all. The banker was happy to keep extending him credit, personally guaranteed.
Yep.
So we had a decision to make in 2008. Do you want to potentially go personally bankrupt, or do you want to just cut ties right now and go and declare business bankruptcy and save yourself the uncertainty? It was like going to a funeral when he shut the business down.
Yeah.
And he shut the business down because he had a team that did not talk. They were not collaborative. He probably should have leveled up as well, but really collaboration is the biggest thing. So your question was, what is the biggest challenge? Having a collaborative professional team. If you have that, and this is where, going back to how we start, I am not some kind of savant. Someone on your podcast might call me and say, hey, Erik, help me, blah, blah, blah. They don't understand that if you call me, I'm not going to like a calculator figure something out and spit out a number to you. There's going to be a CPA that gets involved. There's probably going to be a tax attorney that gets involved. There's going to be me that gets involved from potentially an investment standpoint. You're going to have a minimum of 3 people on the team, a minimum. And guess what? All of them are going to actually talk to each other. They're all going to be collaborative. So as a small business owner, you need a collaborative team. At some point, you kind of do it all on your own, but at some point, you need to start taking things off your plate, and the team, the people that you hand it to, actually have to talk to each other. Because if they don't, it's going to come back to bite you. Maybe not immediately, but at some point when the wheels come off the bus, my dad had a business that was doing, I want to say 6 to 7 million. It was just a cash cow type business. Blew up.
Yeah. I love that, because I had a conversation with someone this morning of, focus on what you love to do and what you're good at. Find everyone else that's better at it than you and that wants to do that, right? I was really good at sales. I was really good at, being in the field. I focused on that for 9 years, and I hired people that were way smarter than me. And it's not what you think. Like, you're not going to spend all kinds of money to hire people that are smarter than you. There's all different levels out there, right? And as the business grows, those people are going to grow, or they're going to grow out, and you're going to replace them. So I love that, Erik. I think that that's such a missing piece that a lot of business owners really, they try to juggle everything instead of just focusing on what they're good at and double and triple down on that. And then leave the other stuff, find the other people to do it that want to do it and that are really, really good at it. I think the fractional space is a newer space that is undiscovered, really, and not a lot of small business owners are using it to their advantage now. It wasn't available. If I wanted a controller, I had to hire a full-time controller. Yeah. This fractional space that we're going into with a lot of people, like, I'm a fractional leader, right? I have a fractional leadership team that I can deploy in your company. You're a fractional tax strategist, right? Like this fractional season that we're going into, not many people are understanding it and looking at it as something that they could do to drop things in their business at a far less of an expense than what it used to be. And quite frankly, I think you get more done with fractional than you do with someone full time, because they're just focused on exactly what they need to be focused on.
So I'm going to give you one other plug.
Sure.
And I think, and this is what's I think really good about someone like Chuck, but I think in general for anybody that's like watching, you want an expert that has done it. And, people always ask me when we do our strategies, like, what are you doing? And I'm doing the same things I'm telling them to do because I've researched it. I do it.
Yep.
And I think it's important from the standpoint of there's a, I lost my train of thought as I was going through it, but there's the ability to have people that have like been there and can like guide you there so that you're not kind of derailed in terms of like, let's try this, let's try that. That's it. That's worth its weight in gold. So you being like a fractional leader and going out and actually saying like, okay, I've been there before. Here's where we go from an experiential standpoint is huge. And that's kind of where these, and it's not this is how you can tell a small minded or just like a lower level person from a higher level person. They're not necessarily willing to learn.
Yeah.
And if they're, you were out there willing to learn, you're always kind of, sharpening the saw. Here's where I was going with it. So the designations that people can have, those are great, but you want someone that's actively doing it at the time. So I bring this up from a financial services standpoint. There's a, CFP and all these things. And they're like, oh, I've got certified in estate planning. I've got this, I've got that. I do too, but I have a top tier estate planning attorney that I'm going to go to because he has to stay sharp to keep his job.
Yep.
And if something happens to him or he gets lazy and doesn't call me back, like I will take all of my business and move it over here. So there's leverage in working with someone that's in the best in their field. I mean, we put a lot of people in certain areas. It gives you leverage in price. It gives you leverage in access to expertise. So this is really where someone like a Chuck is going out and sharpening his saw and meeting with, who'd you meet with for breakfast?
Mark Evans.
Yeah. I mean, Google this guy. I have not eaten with Mark Evans because I'm not in the space that Chuck is to be able to get access to these people. So I think if I wanted to go have dinner with the guy, it's like $500. So it's like, these are the types of things. And he's going to extract information and serve it up, and then distill it. You'll know your clients, distill down, like, what do they need what do they really need? Like, they don't need to go to a full 2-hour seminar. I'm going to distill this into like 5 minutes and boom, give them what they need. That's why it's fractionally beneficial. You're spending all your time becoming an expert to come in and give them, in 30 minutes, what it took you a lifetime of experience and some sharpening of the saw to hand them on a platter. Yep. And we do the same thing on the tax planning side. That's why I'm not going to come in here and pitch anything because I don't know who I'm talking to. But if someone were to call me within 20 to 30 minutes, I would be able to tell them like, boom, boom, boom. I don't want to guarantee anything, but our guarantee is if I can't show or find an immediate monetary benefit, I will not let someone become a client. Yeah. Unless they see like net at least a 2x from what they pay us. At least I try to get it to a 4, but sometimes the numbers are just huge. But in any case, like if they don't see at least a solid monetary benefit, I just don't let them become a client. Yep. Period. Yep. There's no point. Putting
your money where your mouth is, Erik.
That's it.
Well, thank you, my friend. We're out of time, guys. Thanks for everybody that tuned in. Like and share, please. We're episode 2. You know how it goes. We got a lot of traction to build here. Next week, my co-host will be back. We'll be doing another live session next week for you guys and continuously doing them every week from here on out. So like, share, find us on, Apple, especially in Apple and Spotify, like and share there. That's phenomenal. That really helps us get in front of more people and get this information across. Feel free to reach out and say, hey, I want to see an episode of this. I want to see an expert at this. I want that. We love the feedback. We'd love to bring you exactly what you want. We're trying to do our best to make it relative from the startup company all the way up to 50, 60, $100 million a year companies. So again, thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Chuck. 100% of Chuck. That's awesome.
Thanks, Erik.
Yeah, man.